First Contact Deception. Admiral Marcus Zhang stood at the bridge of the TNS Shadowmaker, watching the approaching Vraxian diplomatic vessel through the quantum glass viewport. To any outside observer, the Terran naval ship would appear remarkably primitive, its hull marked with visible well blinds, sensor arrays crudely bolted on, and communication dishes seemingly exposed to space. This was exactly as intended. "They're hailing us again." Admiral, Lieutenant Kelly Rodriguez reported from her communication station. "The Vraxian emissary seems impatient." Zhang allowed himself a small smile. The Vraxians had arrived in Sol system 3 days ago, their crystalline ships gleaming with obvious technological superiority. Their first message had been polite but dripping with condescension. "We come to welcome humanity into the galactic community. Under our guidance, of course." What the Vraxians didn't know, what humanity had spent the last century ensuring no one would know, was that Earth had mastered space travel long before making its presence known to the galaxy. The crude-looking ships, the apparently primitive sensor arrays, the seemingly basic weapon systems, it was all carefully crafted theater. "Let them wait another minute," Zhang replied. Tactical status of the ghost field. Lieutenant Commander Aisha Patel's fingers danced across her holographic interface, though the movements were purely for show. The real controls were being managed through her neural link. "Ghost field is maintaining coverage, sir. The Vraxian scans are only seeing what we want them to see. As far as they can tell, we're running on fusion drives and basic matter/antimatter weapons." In reality, the TNS Shadowmaker was powered by quantum vacuum engines, its hull constructed of metamaterials that could bend both light and space-time itself. The crude sensor arrays masked a network of quantum entanglement communicators, and those exposed communication dishes concealed gravimetric weapon systems that could tear a ship apart from the inside out. "Very well," Zhang nodded. "Let's greet our guests. Put them through, Lieutenant Rodriguez." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the Vraxian emissary. The alien's crystalline exoskeleton caught the light from nearby stars, creating rainbow patterns across the bridge. 4 compound eyes studied Zhang with what the Admiral recognized as barely concealed disdain. "Greetings, Admiral Zhang." The emissary's translation matrix converted its crystalline resonances into standard English. "We were beginning to worry your communication systems were malfunctioning." "Our apologies, emissary," Zhang bowed slightly. "We're still adjusting to interstellar diplomatic protocols." The emissary's crystal segments shifted in what Zhang's synapsychology training identified as amusement. "Perfectly understandable. We look forward to helping humanity advance beyond its current technological limitations. Your species shows remarkable potential, despite your obvious developmental delays." Behind Zhang, he could sense his bridge crew maintaining their carefully practiced expressions of humility and gratitude. They had all been chosen not just for their combat skills, but for their ability to maintain humanity's greatest deception. "We appreciate your generosity," Zhang replied. "Though I must admit, some of our scientists are concerned about the terms of your proposed protectorate status. Would you be willing to clarify a few points?" The emissary's crystalline body sparkled with what Zhang now recognized as smugness. "Of course, though I should note that these terms are non-negotiable. The Vraxian hegemony has guided dozens of primitive species into the galactic community. We have a proven system." As the emissary launched into a detailed explanation of how the Vraxians would help humanity by essentially stripping Earth of its resources and autonomy, Zhang was receiving real-time updates through his neural link. The ghost field was capturing every scan the Vraxians attempted, analyzing their sensor capabilities, and identifying potential weaknesses in their systems. More importantly, the quantum entanglement network was detecting what the Vraxians thought they had hidden: a battle fleet of 30 ships, waiting just outside the Kuiper Belt, ready to enforce their protection if humanity refused their generous offer. "I see," Zhang nodded when the emissary finished. "And how many other species have refused your protection?" The emissary's crystalline structure briefly shifted to a deeper blue, a sign of surprise at the direct question. None have been so foolish. Those who initially resisted quickly learned the benefits of Vraxian guidance. Fascinating, Zhang smiled. And the battle fleet you have hiding beyond the Kuiper Belt, is that part of the standard diplomatic process? The bridge fell silent. The emissary's crystal structure now pulsed with angry red patterns. I don't know what you mean, Admiral. But if you possess technology capable of detecting ships at such a distance, you would hardly need our protection, would you? Zhang's smile widened slightly. An excellent point, emissary. We'll need time to consider your generous offer. Shall we reconvene in 3 standard days? The emissary's color returned to normal, confidence restored. Of course, we understand such decisions can overwhelm primitive nervous systems. Take all the time you need to recognize the inevitability of progress. As the communication ended, Lieutenant Rodriguez turned to Zhang. They've taken the bait, sir. Indeed they have, Zhang confirmed. They're absolutely convinced of our technological inferiority. Tactical. What's the status of Operation Darkwater? Lieutenant Commander Patel's eyes gleamed. All ships are in position, sir. The quantum mesh is ready. The moment they make their move, they'll learn why humanity chose to hide its true capabilities for so long. Zhang returned to studying the Vraxian diplomatic vessel through the viewport. In 3 days, they would return, expecting to either receive humanity's surrender or demonstrate their military superiority. Instead, they would become the first species to understand why. In the centuries to come, human warships would be known as the Dark Reapers of the galaxy. Send word to Fleet Command, Zhang ordered. Tell them the stage is set. The real first contact begins in 3 days. The Silent Hunters. The 3 days passed exactly as Admiral Zhang had predicted. The Vraxian battle fleet moved closer to Earth with each passing hour, their crystalline ships taking up attack formations while maintaining the pretense of diplomatic patience. They never detected the quantum mesh network slowly enclosing their position, nor the human vessels hiding in plain sight among the debris fields of the outer solar system. Commander Sarah Chen watched from the bridge of the TNS Nightshade as her crew made final preparations. Unlike the Shadowmaker's theatrical display of primitive technology, the Nightshade didn't pretend to be anything at all. It simply didn't exist, at least as far as conventional sensors were concerned. Quantum mesh synchronization at 98%, her tactical officer reported. Ghost field is stable and propagating through the network. Gravitum lance primed and ready. Chen nodded, feeling the familiar anticipation before a battle. The Vraxians had brought 30 ships to subjugate what they thought was a primitive species. Humanity had positioned just 10 vessels in response. All they would need. The emissary's transmission is beginning. Commander, her communications officer announced. Sharing feed now. The holographic display showed the Vraxian emissary addressing Admiral Zhang. The alien's crystalline form radiated smug superiority as it delivered its ultimatum. Your time for consideration has ended, Admiral. The Vraxian hegemony requires your answer. Will humanity accept our protection willingly, or must we demonstrate the consequences of defiance? Zhang's response was measured, almost apologetic. I'm afraid we must decline your generous offer, emissary. Humanity prefers to maintain its independence. The emissary's crystal structure flashed with predicted patterns of amusement and contempt. Independence. You mistake the situation, Admiral. This is not a negotiation. Your primitive weapons and defensive capabilities cannot hope to resist our battle fleet. Surrender now, and we will be merciful in our response to your earlier deception about detecting our ships. About that, Zhang smiled. I should probably mention that we weren't exactly honest about our technological capabilities either. The feed cut off as planned, leaving the Vraxians in sudden silence. Shen watched her tactical display as the enemy fleet reacted exactly as expected, shifting into an aggressive formation, their weapons charging as they prepared to teach humanity a lesson in humility. Signal from the Shadowmaker. her tactical officer reported. Admiral Zhang gives the word. Operation Darkwater is now active. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Initiate quantum mesh closure. Let's show them how humanity really fights. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. For the past 3 days, human ships had been positioning microscopic quantum-entangled particles throughout the space surrounding the Vraxian fleet. These particles, linked through the mesh network, could be synchronized to alter the very fabric of space-time within their area of effect. Mesh closure complete, Tactical reported. Ghost field amplification in 3, 2, 1. Around the Vraxian fleet, space itself began to change. The quantum mesh activated, creating a bubble of altered reality where traditional physics began to break down. Sensor readings became unreliable, communications degraded, and even light itself behaved strangely. Chen watched as the enemy ships reacted with predictable panic. Their formation began to break as each vessel suddenly found itself struggling with malfunctioning sensors and limited visibility. The Vraxians, so proud of their technological superiority, had never conceived of warfare that manipulated the fundamental forces of the universe itself. All ships, execute attack pattern Omega, Chen commanded. Remember your training. We are the hunters in the dark. The TNS Nightshade moved with predatory grace, its quantum drive allowing it to navigate the altered space with precision, while the Vraxians floundered. The Graviton Lance, humanity's best-kept secret, prepared to fire. Unlike conventional weapons that tried to penetrate enemy shields, the Graviton Lance used focused beams of gravitational force to crush ships from multiple angles simultaneously. No known defense could stop an attack that came from the fabric of space itself. First target locked, Tactical announced. Graviton Lance at full charge. Fire. The Vraxian ship never saw the attack coming. One moment it was struggling to make sense of its malfunctioning sensors. The next it was being compressed by overwhelming gravitational forces. The crystalline hull, so beautiful and advanced, shattered under forces it was never designed to resist. Throughout the quantum mesh, other human ships were engaging with similar precision. The Vraxians' superior numbers meant nothing when they couldn't effectively target their weapons or coordinate their actions. Their advanced shields were useless against attacks that ignored traditional physics. Enemy vessels attempting to retreat, Tactical reported. They're trying to calculate FTL jump coordinates, but the quantum mesh is preventing accurate calculations. Chen nodded. Let 3 of them escape. Admiral Zhang wants survivors to report what happened here. Target the rest. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 15 minutes. When it was over, 25 Vraxian ships had been reduced to crystalline debris floating in the outer solar system. The 5 survivors, including the emissary's vessel, fled at maximum sublight speed, their retreat covered by the sensor shadows of their destroyed fleet. Signal from the Shadowmaker, communications announced. Admiral Zhang sends congratulations on a successful hunt. Chen relaxed in her command chair, allowing herself to feel satisfaction in a plan well executed. The Vraxians would return to their hegemony with tales of humanity's true power, not just their advanced technology, but their fundamentally different approach to warfare. They had expected a primitive species playing at space combat. Instead, they had encountered predators who had mastered the dark spaces between stars. Send word to Fleet Command, she ordered. Tell them Phase 1 is complete. The galaxy is about to learn why they should fear the dark. Echoes in the void. Dr. Maya Patel studied the neural recordings from the captured Vraxian vessel with growing fascination. As Earth's leading genopsychologist, she had expected to find evidence of fear, confusion, and anger in the alien crew's synaptic patterns. What she discovered instead was something far more profound: the complete shattering of a species' worldview. Play that sequence again, she instructed her AI assistant. The holographic display reactivated, showing the moment when the quantum mesh had first activated around the Vraxian fleet. The neural patterns of the crystalline aliens shifted dramatically, their normally ordered thought processes dissolving into chaos. They literally couldn't process what they were seeing, she muttered, making notes. Their entire understanding of physics, of reality itself, was being contradicted by their own senses. The door to her lab aboard the orbital research station Mindscape slid open, admitting Admiral Zhang. "I take it you found something interesting in the data, Doctor." Maya nodded, gesturing to the complex patterns floating in the air around her. "The Vraxians didn't just suffer a military defeat, Admiral. They experienced what their psychology would categorize as a religious crisis. Their species evolved believing in absolute natural laws, the predictability of physics, the reliability of their advanced technology. We didn't just break their ships. We broke their faith in the universe itself." Zhang studied the neural recordings thoughtfully. "Can they recover from something like that?" "They'll have to," Maya replied. "But they'll never be the same. The survivors who escaped will spread the story. But the most damaging part won't be the tale of their defeat. It will be the fundamental question we forced them to face. What else about their understanding of reality might be wrong?" The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "You think this might make them more dangerous? Drive them to develop countermeasures?" Maya shook her head, bringing up new data streams. "Actually, I expect the opposite. Look at these long-term neural pattern projections. The Vraxian psychology is shifting towards something we might call existential humility. They're beginning to question their assumptions about their place in the galaxy." Across the station, in the Tactical Analysis Center, Commander Chen was reaching similar conclusions through different means. She watched drone footage of Vraxian ships at the edge of human space, noting how their once proud battle formations had become hesitant, almost paranoid in their movements. "They're jumping at shadows," her tactical officer observed. "Every sensor anomaly, every unexpected reading has them on edge. They're seeing human ships in every dark corner of space." Chen smiled. "Good. That's exactly what we wanted. The quantum mesh didn't just demonstrate our technological superiority. It showed them that space itself could be weaponized. They'll never trust their sensors the same way again." The footage showed a Vraxian patrol encountering a natural phenomenon that distorted their sensor readings. Instead of investigating as they would have before, the crystalline ships immediately retreated to safer space. The incident would be logged as another potential human stealth technology sighting, further feeding the growing legend of Earth's mysterious capabilities. Back in her lab, Maya was explaining the broader implications to Admiral Zhang. The Vraxians built their entire civilization on the principle of technological supremacy. Their role as uplifters of primitive species was core to their identity. Now they're faced with evidence that a supposedly primitive race has mastered physics in ways they never imagined possible. And their response is to retreat rather than double down on their aggression. Zhang asked. Maya brought up a new neural pattern analysis. Their psychology doesn't allow for the concept of catching up to our perceived level of advancement. In their minds, if we could hide this level of technology from them, what else might we be hiding? The uncertainty is more devastating than any weapon. Reports from across human space confirmed this assessment. Vraxian ships were withdrawing from their established territories, consolidating their forces around their core worlds. Their once aggressive expansion had been replaced by a defensive posture that bordered on paranoia. The quantum mesh technology had proven more effective than anyone had anticipated. It wasn't just a military tool, it was a psychological weapon that attacked the very foundations of Vraxian society. Their scientists couldn't explain how it worked, their military couldn't defend against it, and their philosophers couldn't reconcile it with their understanding of the universe. "We've intercepted some interesting communications from their home systems," Chen reported during the daily briefing. "Their leadership is struggling to maintain control. Different factions are arguing about how to respond to us. Some want to attempt diplomatic relations from a position of acknowledged equality. Others are advocating for complete isolation from human space." Admiral Zhang considered this information carefully. "And their military response?" "That's the most interesting part," Chen replied, bringing up new tactical displays. "They're completely redesigning their combat doctrine. Their ships are being retrofitted with what they think might be countermeasures to our technology. But since they don't actually understand how our systems work, they're basically operating on superstition. Some ships are being equipped with redundant sensor arrays, others with experimental space-time monitoring devices. None of it would actually help against a real quantum mesh deployment. Maya added her own insights to the discussion. From a psychological warfare perspective, this is actually better than if they had found effective countermeasures. They're expending massive resources on defensive systems that provide nothing but a false sense of security. The real defense remains the same. Stay away from human space. The Admiral nodded slowly. So we've achieved our primary objective. The Vraxians won't risk another direct confrontation, and their retreat will signal to other spacefaring species that humanity is not to be underestimated. It's more than that, Maya corrected. We've created a new kind of deterrent. Traditional warfare relies on the enemy knowing your capabilities and fearing them. We've created a situation where they fear what they don't know, and more importantly, what they can't know. The darkness between stars has become humanity's ally, and every shadow holds the potential for another human ship lying in wait. As if to emphasize her point, another report came in. A Vraxian mining operation at the edge of their territory had been abandoned after sensors detected unusual gravitational readings. There were no human ships within 50 light-years of the facility, but the mere possibility was enough to trigger an evacuation. The message was clear. Humanity had changed the rules of space warfare forever. In the vast darkness between stars, uncertainty had become the ultimate weapon. The darkness between stars. Fleet Admiral Helena Santos stood in the tactical center of humanity's Deep Space Command, watching as red warning indicators bloomed across the galactic map. The Vraxians weren't coming alone this time. They had formed an alliance with 3 other spacefaring species, all convinced that humanity's mysterious technology posed an existential threat to their way of life. Combined fleet size estimates, she asked, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Over 300 vessels. Admiral, her strategic officer reported. The Vraxians have apparently convinced the Nix Collective, the Meridian Consortium, and the Silent Empire that we're too dangerous to be left unchecked. They're calling themselves the Stellar Defense Coalition. Santos studied the movement patterns of the approaching armada. The Vraxians had shared their experience with human technology, and the coalition fleet was moving with obvious caution. Their formation was loose enough to prevent a single quantum mesh from trapping them all, and they were constantly running sweeps for gravitational anomalies. They've learned, she observed, but not enough. Status of Operation Eternal Night. All pieces are in position, Admiral. The quantum web is ready for full activation. Fleet elements are stationed at all predetermined coordinates. We've been seeding dark matter nodes throughout the projected battlefield for the past month. Santos allowed herself a small smile. The coalition thought they had prepared for humanity's known capabilities. They had no idea that the quantum mesh technology they feared was just the beginning. Send word to all fleet commanders, she ordered. Initiate Phase 1. Across 50 light-years of space, human vessels hidden in the void began their work. But unlike the previous engagement with the Vraxian fleet, this operation was far more sophisticated. Instead of creating a single bubble of altered spacetime, they began weaving together multiple fields, creating a vast web of overlapping zones where reality itself became uncertain. Commander Chen, now captain of the advanced stealth cruiser TNS Umbra, watched her tactical display as the coalition fleet entered the first layer of humanity's trap. They're detecting the quantum distortions, she reported to Santos, reacting exactly as predicted, splitting into smaller battle groups to maintain tactical flexibility. Excellent. Santos replied through the quantum entanglement link. Begin Phase 2. Show them what true darkness looks like. The dark matter nodes, carefully positioned weeks in advance, activated in sequence. These devices didn't just bend light or disrupt sensors. They created regions of space where photons simply ceased to exist. The coalition ships found themselves facing patches of absolute darkness, zones where their most basic method of gathering information about their environment simply didn't work. Coalition fleet is responding with electromagnetic pulse suites, Chen reported. They're trying to map the dark zones. Let them, Santos commanded. Time for Phase 3. This was the true evolution of human space warfare technology. As the coalition ships probed the darkness, the quantum web began its real work. Instead of simply disrupting their sensors, it started feeding them false data. Phantom readings of human fleet movements, ghost signatures of gravitational weapons charging, echoes of ships that didn't exist. The coalition fleet's formation began to deteriorate as each ship received different contradictory information about their tactical situation. The careful coordination they had planned dissolved into confusion as reality itself seemed to turn against them. "Sir," Chen's tactical officer reported, "we're detecting weapons fire from coalition vessels. They're shooting at our phantom signatures." The coalition's sophisticated battle plan was unraveling. Ships that thought they were firing at human vessels were actually targeting their allies. The darkness wasn't just hiding human ships, it was turning the coalition fleet against itself. Coalition command channels are in chaos. Communications reported. "We're picking up multiple distress calls and retreat orders, all contradicting each other." Santos nodded. "They still think this is about ships hiding in darkness. They don't understand that we've weaponized uncertainty itself." Execute Phase 4. Now the human fleet revealed itself, not all at once, but in calculated glimpses. A ship would appear at the edge of coalition sensors, fire its graviton lance, and vanish before anyone could respond. Another would emerge from the darkness just long enough to be seen, triggering panic and confusion before disappearing again. The coalition fleet's attempts to maintain formation became increasingly desperate. The Nix ships, with their advanced sensor arrays, were detecting different threats than the Meridian vessels with their quantum scanning technology. The silent ships, relying on their psychic navigators, were receiving yet another set of contradictory information. "Coalition fleet is breaking apart," Chen reported. "The Meridian ships are attempting to retreat. The Nix are trying to hold position. The Silence, their psychic navigators, appear to be incapacitated by the quantum interference." Santos watched as the mighty armada dissolved into chaos. Ships were firing at shadows, fleeing from phantoms, and sometimes colliding with their own allies in their confusion. And through it all, human vessels struck with precision, choosing targets carefully to maximize the psychological impact of each attack. "Send the message," Santos ordered, "on all frequencies in all coalition languages." The transmission was brief. "You thought you understood the darkness of space. You thought you could prepare for our technology. But you never realized that the void itself is our ally. Retreat now, or learn why the darkness between stars belongs to humanity." The coalition's response came in waves. First, the Meridian ships, their precise calculations and careful strategies rendered useless, engaged their FTL drives and fled. The Nix followed soon after, their vaunted sensor technology having become a liability in a space they could no longer trust to follow normal laws of physics. The Silence, their psychic navigators overwhelmed by the quantum distortions, surrendered outright. Only the Vraxians attempted to maintain some semblance of resistance, but even they finally accepted the futility of their position. As the coalition fleet retreated in disarray, Santos turned to her strategic officer. "Casualties. 3 human ships damaged, no losses. Coalition losses approximately 60 vessels, with another 40 severely damaged. But the real victory isn't in the numbers. Admiral, we've just demonstrated that we can control the fundamental forces of space itself. The psychological impact of this battle will reshape galactic politics for generations." Santos nodded, watching the coalition ships flee into FTL. "The darkness between stars," she mused. "They finally understand. It's not just our hiding place. It's our weapon, our shield, and our domain." A new understanding. 6 months after the Battle of the Dark Void, as it came to be known, Dr. Maya Patel found herself in an unusual position. The observation deck of the diplomatic station New Dawn was filled with representatives from 20 different spacefaring species, all gathered to witness the signing of the Terran Accords. Among them were former enemies, Vraxians, Nix, Meridians, and Silence, now seated alongside humans as equals. The station's massive viewport showed Earth in the distance, a blue jewel against the backdrop of space. But it was the darkness between the stars that held everyone's attention. Every species present knew that somewhere out there, human ships were watching, invisible and untouchable. "Quite a change from our first contact," Admiral John commented, joining Maya at her observation post. "Remember how the Vraxians looked down on our primitive technology?" Maya nodded, watching the Vraxian delegation. Their crystalline forms no longer radiated the arrogant superiority of their first encounter. Instead, they moved with a careful deliberation that spoke of hard-learned wisdom. "Their neural patterns show fascinating adaptations," she replied. "They've developed new mental frameworks to cope with the knowledge that their understanding of physics was incomplete. In a way, we forced them to evolve." The Admiral raised an eyebrow. "Evolved into what?" "Into something more humble," Maya smiled. "And perhaps more dangerous in the long run. Not as enemies, but as potential equals who now understand that the universe is far more mysterious than they imagined." Across the room, Captain Chen was engaged in a surprisingly cordial discussion with a Nix sensor specialist. The aliens' multiple eye stalks wavered as they discussed the technical aspects of quantum field manipulation. "Your mastery of void technology is remarkable," the Nix observed, "but what fascinates me most is how you conceived of it in the first place. Our sensors were designed to detect everything, to illuminate every corner of space. It never occurred to us that darkness itself could be a tool." Chen's response was diplomatic, but carried an edge of pride. "Humanity learned long ago that sometimes the most powerful position is one of deliberate restraint. Our ships don't dominate space. We work with it, shape it, become one with it." Fleet Admiral Santos stood at the center of the chamber, preparing to address the gathered representatives. The room fell silent as she stepped onto the speaking platform. "Distinguished representatives of the galactic community," she began, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Today marks not just the end of hostilities, but the beginning of a new understanding between our peoples. Humanity's demonstration of void technology has changed how we all view space warfare, but more importantly, it has changed how we view each other." The assembled aliens listened intently, their various sensory organs focused on the human admiral. Each species had their own reason for being there. The Vraxians had learned humility. The Nix had discovered the limits of their technological superiority. The Meridians had found their strategic calculations inadequate. And the Silence had experienced the boundaries of their psychic abilities. "The Terran Accords we signed today," Santos continued, "are not just a peace treaty. They represent a commitment to sharing knowledge, to exploring the mysteries of space together, rather than using them as weapons against each other. Humanity will share aspects of our void technology, not as a sign of weakness, but as a demonstration of our commitment to this new partnership." A murmur ran through the crowd. This was unexpected. The humans offering to share the very technology that had made them feared throughout known space. However, Santos's voice hardened slightly. "Let me be clear. While we will teach you about quantum fields and dark matter manipulation, some aspects of our technology will remain classified. The darkness between stars will always be humanity's domain. We offer partnership, not parity." Maya watched the neural patterns of the assembled aliens shift as they processed this declaration. There was no anger or resentment in their responses, only acceptance and a strange sort of relief. They understood that humanity was offering them a choice: learn to coexist with the masters of the void, or risk facing that mastery as enemies. The signing ceremony proceeded smoothly. One by one, representatives of each species approached the central platform to add their authentication to the Accords. The Vraxian emissary, the same one who had once dismissed humanity as primitive, was the first to sign. As the ceremony concluded, Maya found herself back at the viewport, watching the stars. Admiral Zhang joined her again. "You seem thoughtful, Doctor," he observed. "I'm considering the future," she replied. "We've changed the balance of power in the galaxy, not just militarily but philosophically. These species now know that their understanding of physics, of reality itself, is incomplete. That knowledge will drive them to explore, to question, to evolve. And that's a good thing." Maya smiled. "It's the best possible outcome. We haven't just defeated them. We've inspired them. They'll never match our mastery of the void, but in trying to understand it, they'll discover new technologies, new possibilities we haven't even imagined." Outside the viewport, a human stealth ship briefly allowed itself to become visible, a reminder of the power that underwrote the peace they had just established. The assembled aliens watched it fade back into darkness with a mixture of awe and acceptance. "The darkness between stars belongs to humanity," Maya mused, "but the light of discovery belongs to all of us." Admiral Zhang nodded, watching as the various delegations began to depart. Each would return to their homeworlds with stories of human power, human wisdom, and human mystery. The legend of the Dark Reapers would evolve into something more nuanced, not just warriors who had mastered the void, but teachers who had shown the galaxy a new way of thinking about space itself.